We are programmed to get a reply now. Our texts were read at 7:48. We send an email, we know someone gets it immediately. And then we feel isolated when they don't respond right away. But this is the beautiful thing about this process. You drop it, it's non-intrusive with zero expectations. And that just amps the power up even further. But you have to get yourself in the mindset that, yes, this was done in goodwill. Yes, this is sincere. I stand behind what I said, especially those first 4 or 5 times you do it. And I've worked with a lot of people who were really stressed out, like you said, standing over the letter. But once they started participating, but you will see the difference that it will make. And you will realize, oh my God, this was hiding in plain sight the whole time.
Hello and welcome to the Art of Value Whispering podcast. I'm your host, Melitta Campbell, business coach, value whisperer, and advocate for introverted female experts who want to grow a business that feels aligned, meaningful, and impactful. Each week on this show, I explore what it really takes to create a quietly impactful business, one that thrives through meaningful marketing, value-driven sales, and self-leadership. So if you're ready to attract your dream clients, sell with confidence, and create lasting success on your own terms, you're in the right place. And my guest today really embodies all of this in, I want to say, an unusual way, but it's so old school. It's something I think I can guarantee that you've all done this before in the past, but probably haven't done it for quite some time. And I'm not going to tell you too much about it because I don't want you to think, oh yeah, I know what that's going to be about. I want you to come and learn about just such a magical and human way to create connection and market your business and show your clients just how much you care and value them in a way that you can all do right now, guaranteed. So I will not keep you in suspense any longer, and I'll bring Amy Daughters into the show. So welcome, Amy. It's great to have you with us today.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited about our conversation.
Yeah, me too, because we're going to talk about something a little bit different. I hesitated there to say different because it's something that I think we've all grown up doing, but I bet most people haven't done this for at least a decade. So I'm looking forward to diving in because this podcast is all about meaningful marketing. And you said a brilliant word just before we came on with sincerity. And I thought, yes, that's exactly it. And you have stumbled across a way of not just marketing, but a way of connecting with people that is really sincere and special, especially in today's modern world of everything is online, AI is taking over, but your approach is a little bit different. But I'm not going to give any spoilers because I'd love for you to share your story with the audience and how you came across this particular, what's the word? This particular
You almost call it a tool.
tool. Yeah, particular tool. Yeah.
Maybe a tool. Yeah, we can maybe redefine that. But I'm a freelance writer and an author. And I like to tell the story that I was just minding my own business because I was. And I think part of the story kind of becoming magical was because it was not intentional. I was not intending to find this tool. I was just minding my own business. So basically, try to make it quick. I was on Facebook one day several years ago, and I had this friend's name that had popped around in my head for decades. And I think that's very relatable. So I go on, I type her name in, and voila, there she is. She's a girl who I had met at a summer camp in Texas 35 years ago, had not spoken a word to since. And all I really remembered is we had big personalities and thought we were funny. So I must have remembered her based on that. So I type her name in, voila, there she is. Since those relationships don't require a lot of investment, I friended her, she accepted my friend request, and now we're friends again. And so then I spend the obligatory 5 minutes going through her page and seeing what's up for the last 35 years. And right away, I find out she has 5 kids. So she's overachieved in that area. And she's got 4 girls that are older, and the youngest child is a son. His name is Parker, the only boy. And right away, I find out that Parker has cancer. And, as a mom, as a human being, as a person, you become invested because that's a worst case scenario from whatever angle you're looking at it from. So I start following along with these people's story. He goes into remission. Then he goes back to this children's hospital in Memphis, Tennessee, because he's relapsed. And that next Monday, after she posted about it, I sat down at my desk to write, and it was like a lightning bolt hit me in the head. And I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start sending them handwritten notes to the hospital where he was being treated. Now, this despite the fact that I still hadn't spoken to this person in 35 years. I didn't like her posts or comment on them because I felt like that was disingenuous. I'm a stranger, and she's got a son battling cancer. Never met the kid, hadn't written anyone and put it in the mail, something handwritten, in probably 25 years at the time. So this wasn't something that I did regularly at all. But I was so invested in this idea that I just couldn't stop myself. And I kind of thought it was crazy, but I kept doing it. So I wrote the two of them, Dana and Parker, for probably 12 weeks. And then unthinkably, devastatingly, there's no good words for this. It has nothing to do with me. Parker passes away at 15 years old. And so I sent a condolence card. That seemed like the right thing to do. And then it had nothing to do with me, but I was like, what am I supposed to do? Because I really felt like lightning bolted by the first idea. I sat down at my desk again. It was like a mini lightning bolt. Just keep writing her. So now I had to kind of find out where she lived. I sent the letters to her husband's law office address. So it was like different levels of me being irrational, but I couldn't stop myself. It was like I was on a mission. Something in the universe was compelling me to do this. So I started writing her in her home state, sending the letters every week. And I had a writing assignments at the time. So she was my Sunday for Monday. And I just couldn't stop myself, even though I told myself every week, this is crazy. This woman is devastated and you're writing your letters, but the letters got longer and longer. And I don't know if I would have given up, but about 5 months in, I go out to my mailbox and there's a 10-page letter from this woman. And she talks about her grief. She talks about her kids. At the end of the letter, she said, I didn't even know I was going to say all that, but I feel better for saying it. And so this kicks off 2 years. Me and this woman write each other. That's all we do. We don't text. We don't call. We didn't even exchange phone numbers or anything because I think there was something so sacred about this in writing relationship. So here are these letters crossing in the mail, and we're both sharing on a level that we really don't share with anyone else. I'm looking at my life from the outside in. It's super cathartic for me. She's talking about her grief. I become the person she tells that stuff to when everyone else seems like they're doing okay in the family. She tells me about the grief. We don't feel like we have to respond to anything specifically, which works well for me because I don't know what to say to her about her grief. The only thing I can say is that's horrible. But these letters are crossing and no one knows when they're being read. So there's this vacuum created. And the great thing is, we don't know how each other vote. We don't know our socioeconomic levels. We don't know our religious beliefs. We don't know how we stand on any issue. All we know is we care about each other deeply because of all this in writing sharing. And it's very tactile. We're holding the letters in our hands, and it's like 2018, so nobody's doing this. And we would say stuff like, "I've never told anybody this, but I know I can trust you," because we're sharing in this level. So after about 4 months, I guess 6 months, 8 months of this two-way relationship, pen paling is basically what we're doing. But we're friends on Facebook. I sat back and I was like, this kind of has changed my perspective on so many areas of my life. So if this one random girl from this list of hundreds of people who I've known to differing degrees on Facebook, throughout my life experience, like this one girl could be full of so much goodness. Like what else is out there? So I made a decision. I was like, I'm going to try to write everyone, all of my Facebook friends. So I put everyone's name in a box. I bought stationery. I got a journal. I made myself some rules. And I really thought I was going to get about 30 letters in, and then I would get the point. But after I got to about 30 letters, I was like, this is going to be probably the most important thing I do in my life. And it took me 18 months. I wrote 600 letters and it changed my life to the point that I wrote a book about it, speak about it, and basically I can't shut up about it because this little tool that we all have in our human toolkits, I had no idea the power of goodness it would unleash on my little circle of the world.
Yeah, I love that story so much. And as you were saying that, I was like, gosh, that's not just like a lovely thing and a beautiful relationship that you've built with a stranger who was once a friend and now is still a friend in a very special way, but it's also a legacy. Because I remember when I was packing up my grandmother's house, well, my grandmother-in-law, is that a thing? So we were packing up my grandmother-in-law's house, and in her loft was this box of all the letters her and her husband wrote to each other during the war. And so we could relive that experience. We could start to see their relationship and feel connected to people who lived like a couple of generations in an experience that we've never had, but we felt part of. So I love that you're creating this connection in the moment right now. But then, yeah, I was just transported back. It's like, gosh, this is going to be such a legacy for future generations as well, to see this moment in time and this relationship growing between you as well. It's just so magical.
It is. And I had no idea about that. But those of us who grew up in the generation where we did write letters, so many people say they've saved their letters. Like I have a box of letters. You have this incredible legacy of this relationship in writing, which is historical and, relational and all those things. But we have the opportunity because, the number one takeaway from those 600 letters I wrote was I will save your letter in a special place for the rest of my life. And that's the power we have, each of us have, because each of those people understood that it took time and effort for me to write the letter. And so they felt valued and seen in a way that they hadn't felt valued and seen, and individualized and personalized. And they go to the mailbox and realize, oh my God, she had to sit down and she had to put paper in an envelope and get a stamp and drive across town. Oh my God, I mean this much to another person. And that little magical moment that can be created is applicable to anywhere where there's a human relationship involved.
Yeah, I think on a personal level, it's really powerful and special, but it's also something that we can bring into our businesses to show our clients that we see them, we understand them, we value them, and we've put that little bit of extra effort in rather than just sending a text or an email, which is already nice if it's personalized, but a letter is something special. And for all of my clients, I handwrite them a card that I've designed that goes with a copy of my book that I send them just to welcome them into the community and show that I'm excited. But quite a few of them then send the card back, which is really nice. And I have them on my shelves here. And the nice thing with the card is it's there. I haven't taken these down in, I know, several years because it's just a really nice memento of a moment that we shared. So I love this idea of taking that little bit of extra time to say something meaningful. But I guess that's the point where people are going to struggle a little bit. They sit down and then what do you actually say? So how did you feel that first time when you were going to sit down and write something? Did you already have a plan of what to say? Did you just write and it came? Or what was that experience like for you?
No, and that's a great question because I am just as human as everyone else. I was just a girl with this quest to go on. But I absolutely sat down with hundreds of letters and thought, what am I doing? What am I going to say? I'm really going to, because it's a vulnerable position to write someone a note because we don't do it anymore. And I think that's why it comes across sincere on the other end of the transaction, because it takes that, not just the physical effort, but it takes the emotional effort to sit down and do it. And so absolutely I sat over the letters and I did come up with a formula for writing letters only as it ends to a mean because I had to fill the 2 pages. So really the first thing I would do is say, this is what I'm doing. I'm writing all of you because of Dana and Parker. And then I eventually would go to each Facebook profile and spend like 10 minutes looking through these people's life. And that was an exercise in a lot of things, but I was just blown away by all these incredible people I was connected to. And I had assumed things about that were wrong, not because I had bad will, but because I hadn't sat down and looked at them individually. And so then I realized that these people were living as messy and beautiful lives as I was. And then I realized that the things that I focused on were the things that divided us instead of the things that connected us. But in looking through their actual human experience and trying to understand that really began to shift. And then the best part was, since I still had another part of the page to fill, is I looked at each person and I kind of looked at where they fit into my life. And I had the opportunity to thank people and then really look and consider where they fit into my life. And that was an exercise in gratitude that I didn't intend to go on. And so that was kind of my 2-step approach, was to look at their real life outside the box I had put them in, the assumption I had made about them, and then looking at who they meant to me as a human being. And then I absolutely had so many things to say. But I think in sitting down in like a client-based business, I think it's really the same 2 steps, but in kind of a different angle. It's like, you look at this person and think, this client, humanize them. What is this person? And we already do that, I think especially your audience, but really sit down and consider, what is this person's life like? What are they doing right now? What are they going through? And then who is this person been to me as a client? And I think the thing that holds up my story is that the word letter, it does not have to be a letter. And I think in this case, a note, a sincere note where you say something specific, to this client where you say, "Dear valued client," and you can go personal and be brief and sincere, or you can go professional and thank them for their business. But I've talked to a lot of people about this, and it's absolutely appropriate, especially if it's brief, to go either way. Like, we know when someone's lost their mother. We know when someone's had a significant milestone birthday. We know when someone has a child struggling with an illness like Dana. We know these things, and participating in this note writing, it opens our eyes to these things because we're looking for reasons to write a note to somebody. I keep a notebook next to my desk, and when I see something on social media, or I talk to somebody, or I'm in a meeting, I write down a note that I can write a note about, and that becomes your eyes and ears. So you don't have to do it right that minute, but then you have a list to draw from, and then it can be as simple as, "Dear value client, we heard that your mother passed away, and we are so sorry. Me and the team have been thinking about you. We just want you to know you have our support. You're valued by us. Sincerely, your name." And that right there, it's like offering this hand of friendship. And they're going to see the time that you took to do this and that they matter to you this much. And I tell people this all the time, outside of offering someone $100 bill, this has as much impact as anything, I think, except for that. But it means more personally than that does, for sure.
Yeah. So what has happened since? So you sat down, firstly, how long did it take you to write 600 letters to all your friends?
It was 18 months. That's
Wow.
how long it took. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you thought you'd get to 30. What what happened that made you continue?
Well, I think it, at first it was, people responded in such a way that was so, the only word I can think for it is over the top. Like, the reaction was so strong and so emotional. So that was one side of the transaction. People were like, "Oh my gosh, you have no idea what that meant to me. Like, you have no idea. Like, you literally turned my year around, my day around. Like, I don't even have words for what it meant to me." But then the other side of it was, and there's science attached to this, it was the way it made me feel. Because I think the person who's changed at the end of this transaction the most, especially when you put it into sincere marketing, you're going to be a better human being from doing this. And it releases some kind of endorphin. And just the act of handwriting, this has been proven in science. It's supposedly doing things in handwriting, whether you're journaling or handwriting letters, you're 20% more likely to reduce mental stress and see emotional clarity just from this exercise. So I think you're going to be a better employer, a better employee. You're going to be a better uh, serving your clients better because of it. You're going to get yourself in a different mindset, and I think that, for me, that's where the momentum came. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is something I can do in this divisive culture. I'm going to do something good today." And I still do it every morning. That's my first act every morning. And years have passed now since I've written the hundreds of letters. And I don't think anyone needs to write hundreds of letters. I think the universe gave me this great story to tell and have a jump off point for this conversation that we're having.
Yeah, I love that. So there's a few things you've mentioned. One, firstly, I love the idea of having a notebook where you write down ideas, because that's always a start. But where do I start? And we'll just wait for the idea to come almost, start looking through their profile, start reviewing what's happened with them in the past, and just note down your ideas and just get started. But you mentioned there you're quite vulnerable when you start writing a letter. And I guess you put it in the post and you don't know, as you mentioned earlier, when they're going to open it, if they're going to open it, is it going to arrive? And there's so much unknown about that as well. And how do you cope with that vulnerability? Is there any tips for someone who's get started, but I'm kind of picturing myself here. I'll start and then, oh no, but I can't say that. Oh, but what if I don't get the words right? We're so used to getting things perfect, and particularly now we can lean on ChatGPT to help us. How do you get through that? Is it because it's a case of you just keep writing and see what happens?
Right. You have to trust your sincerity. You have to trust your humanness. And I would say the best way to battle that at the beginning is to be brief. Be brief, go 2 sentences, and trust that things that come to your mind. Reread them 4 times, you have to. And then if it came from a place of sincerity, if it came from a place of goodwill, and you can verify that 100%, if nothing else, in those 2 sentences, then trust yourself just long enough to seal the envelope. And I really think the magic happens when you put it in the mail or the post or drop it off in someone's mailbox, and then you expect nothing, because
Mhm.
that's the best way. Because what you're giving them is a gift that's non-intrusive. They're not going to, you're not going to wait for reaction, because you're letting them have something tactile that you're not going to sit and watch them open. And that is such a beautiful gift, because you're going to let them receive it in whatever way they need to receive it. So then you need to completely take, if you get a reply, that's great, but you need to take that completely off the table, because we are programmed to get a reply now. Our texts were read at 7:48. We send an email, we know someone gets it immediately. And then we feel isolated when they don't respond right away. But this is the beautiful thing about this process. You drop it, it's non-intrusive, with zero expectations. And that just amps the power up even further. But you have to get yourself in the mindset that, yes, this was done in goodwill. Yes, this is sincere. I stand behind what I said, especially those first 4 or 5 times you do it. And I've worked with a lot of people who were really stressed out, like you said, standing over the letter. But once they started participating, once they got to their letter 30, which it doesn't have to be the 30th letter, it can be the fifth or the, because this has got to fit into your schedule and your lifestyle and your personality. But you will see the difference that it will make. And you will realize, oh my God, this was hiding in plain sight the whole time.
Yeah, I love that. And you talked about how it's a great way to become a better human being. And I was curious, what have you seen the change in yourself as a result of this process that you've gone on?
Oh, yeah. Well, personally, I refuse to believe there's anything that can separate two human beings who reach out to each other with nothing but goodwill on the line. Because there's so many times I wrote people who I knew that were completely different, believe different things. And then, of course, what we believe still matters. But once I reached out to someone, and like I said, I looked at who they were, they had this beautiful, messy life, just like I did, that was as real as mine was. And I was connected to them for a reason. That, yeah, it still mattered, like how they voted or any of those things, but really, if they walked into the room, what would matter was this connection between, the sincere connection between two humans. So I look at all my friends differently now. I know I don't know everything just from the process of writing the letters
Mm.
and the process of them opening up. And it just opened my eyes to all that. It's almost like I went back to before the divisiveness, not all the time, but it also made me realize every day I can do something hopeful and good in the world, and the world will beat us down and tell us that's not the case, but we can create meaningful connections. And I'm reminded of that every single day. And that's why I honor the process, because that's the best version of me.
Yeah, totally. So you mentioned, well, I was just wondering if there's anything you've learned that definitely does work or definitely doesn't work, anything to avoid or any types of paper to avoid, anything that you've learned along the way that might help other people to feel confident making the start with this.
As far as the paper, and I'm now a paper snob because I've written so many letters, but I would feel, especially when you're client facing, I would pick something that's, nice. You don't have to spend a whole bunch of money, but if you really look at textures of paper and like spend a little time researching it, get something that fits your personality, that's fairly nice though, that you feel like represents whatever your brand is pretty well. But you don't have to spend a lot of money to do that, because stationery sales are, you don't have to go really nice. There's nice stationery in a lot of unexpected places like major retailers. But I think the thing is, it's a lot about like your approach to what you're doing. You have to approach this from the way that makes the most sense to you, that you feel personally fits your personality the best. And if that's, you really feel like you need to write 17 sentences, or you feel like you need one sentence, you have to honor not just your brand, but your personal approach to other people, the way you connect with people. And I think that's why I don't want this to be a blueprint, like this is absolutely what you have to do, because it's such a personal thing and it's so vulnerable, and it comes across that way to the other person on the other side of the transaction. So you have to trust yourself and be yourself.
Yeah.
100%. And you have to feel good about it, just like a lot of your approach has to do with marketing that you can feel good about. And I think you have to connect with people in a way that you have to feel good about in your way.
Yeah, exactly. And we talk about in the Value Whispering Blueprint program that I run about a thing called TNTs, the tiny noticeable things you can do for your clients that show them that you understand them, that you care, that you see them. And very often these are just really tiny things. And I can give you an example that is not a client of mine, but there's a particular restaurant we went to once when my kids were little. I think they were 6 and 8, something like that. And it was a sushi restaurant. And so we ordered some sushi, but the waitress brought my kids their meal, but in a little boat. And they're not supposed to have the boat. It's from the display. But she goes, I just thought these were really fun and thought you might enjoy them. And their faces lit up. And then at the end, so I live in Switzerland, and what typically happens is you get a cup of coffee at the end with a little chocolate. But this is the problem. I go to a restaurant on my own and I have two kids looking at me thinking, who's going to get the chocolate? And I'm
Right,
thinking, I want the chocolate. And so
right,
usually I have to split it in two. They both get a tiny bit. I miss out. And but this time the waitress just came, brought my coffee, looked at my kids with a big smile, and gave them both a tiny chocolate each. I mean, that cost the restaurant zero. But now every time we go to that town, we have to go to that restaurant because they've made my kids feel so special. And so I couldn't even possibly take them anywhere else because they would just be so upset that they hadn't gone back to this particular restaurant. So I think these tiny things we do, I mean, what she showed was that she cared, that she understood what it was like to be a child, what it was like to be a mum with these two eyes, the ones in that bit of chocolate. But I think writing a letter is just such a wonderful way to do that and to make it so personal as well. As you say, even if it's just a couple of lines in a card that you send, it does mean the world. And I've seen it with the letters that I've written to my clients when they come back. And there's the Joe Malone, they started with the candles and they wrote a
right.
letter to everyone that bought one. And I think that was in part was why the company grew so much because everyone was then talking about it. So it's not just a nice thing to do, but then people will talk about it. And I've seen that with quite a few of my clients. They've done something small but meaningful, and then their clients have talked about it to their friends who are very often the same sort of profile. And so their business has grown through these really simple things. So I think it's just such a wonderful way to make that connection, to grow your brand awareness, and to make a positive difference in someone's life in the process.
Right. It hits on all the levels. And really, to me, one of the biggest indicators of how powerful this is, there's a lot of organizations now buying hardware and computer software that will handwrite letters for them, that will physically make it seem like you received a handwritten letter. Now, I realize if you have thousands and thousands of employees or clients, this is a hard thing to do. But that just indicates if people are going to make this kind of investment, that's the kind of power it has. But you have the power to do it right this second, because all you really need to pull this off is a pen and a sincere heart to do it. And whatever the cost of a postage stamp is in your country, here in the United States, it's 73 cents. So,
Yeah, a little bit more here. But still, it's in terms of marketing spend, it's still like pennies. And as you said, it's not just something you do, it's you have to be present to write a letter and you have to put your heart into that as well. So the expense is just minimal in terms of, as you say, that connection for them, but also how you're going to feel doing that as well. And I think when you can market your business and make a difference for other people in a way that is so meaningful and connected, it's just a really wonderful experience.
oh, it is. And it takes you from being, here's this, this incredible builder who does incredible builds or redesigns with homes, to here's this builder who does incredible redesigns, who really cares about me and values me and does a really cool thing, and who values me as a human being, not just because I spent all the money. So it elevates everything. It's sincere marketing is what it is.
Yeah. And I think more and more when everything is AI generated, even the videos people send. I saw a demonstration recently of this guy and he got really excited because he could send personalized videos to everybody. Only it was AI that had generated his video and his voice send it. So there was no real effort into that at all. So they got a personalized message, but and when you have these kind of things, something's not quite right. And you're there
Yeah.
like, why is this not quite right? And so I think it kind of casts more doubt than anything. So I think going old school and writing a letter is just wonderful.
There's something about the humanness in us that, and there's science about endorphins being released when you read something handwritten from somebody else. There's all the science, but there is something human in us that, and I think that when we see something that's manufactured like that, it's unsettling because it doesn't fill that part of us that we all need filled. It is emotional intelligence. And the further that artificial intelligence goes, the further the chat GPT goes, it takes this and just exponentially makes it more powerful. It absolutely is a tool that can be used, and I keep saying the same thing, but there's so much goodwill in it, it just cannot be gauged.
Yeah. And I think in these days, the only things I really get through the post these days are speeding tickets. Unfortunately, I get a lot of those, and coffee capsules. And so having something different and handwritten is just, yeah, a really welcome surprise and a gift, as you said.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm just curious if there's anything you feel that we haven't touched on that you feel the audience should know about to feel really ready and inspired to take that first step and write that next letter.
Yeah, I think we've covered everything. I would just say the thing is, it's going to take some time to get traction in your, whatever your schedule is. For me, it was 30 letters. I mean, it was a while ago, so it's hard, but it will take a while to make a difference with you and for you to see the difference. So I would give it some time, and again, I would trust yourself, like you're a 1 letter a week girl or you're 1 letter a month, but give it a chance though. Give it a chance to get some traction because it won't just happen after one note. It's going to take several to see a difference in what you're doing. And since it is old school, since it's not instantaneous, to get into a rhythm, it's going to take more time than it will, in doing something that involves electronics or digital media.
Yeah. And as we touched on earlier, people aren't used to it and they can feel vulnerable, so they may not write back. And so, as you said, send something out without any expectation, but trust that you've put your heart into it and you're going to make that special connection.
Right. And if you have questions and you have, like, you've listened and you still have hesitations, I can direct you to my website where my email is. I mean this genuinely and sincerely. I'm a person who wrote a book, but I'm a person who believes in this so strongly. If you want to contact me, I will gladly discuss what your hesitations are and I'll probably share them because it's a human thing. So it's a very connected thing. And I'm happy to discuss, collaborate with anyone who's interested in doing this.
Wonderful. Thank you. That's very generous of you. So you mentioned you've written a book about this. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and what the title is so we can go and check that out?
Right. The book is called Dear Dana. That time I went crazy and wrote all 580 of my Facebook friends a handwritten letter. So it's right. It's the longest subtitle. I couldn't believe that got through. And it basically takes the story that I told at the very beginning of Dana and I and Parker and her son. And then that's the first little part of the book. And then it shifts to the Facebook letters and it highlights very quickly 52 of the letters. It, includes actual dialogue between me and recipients. And it just walks away with really quick chapters and lessons I learned from doing it. So it's very uplifting. The best compliment I got about it was it makes you want to be a better human being. So it just takes you on that journey and kind of shows you what I learned. But it's funny because I've learned so much since then, like we all do when we write books. We write a book and then we keep going and we find out so much more about our topic. So
Yeah, exactly. I had that experience with my book, A Shy Girl's Guide to Networking. And then I was invited to speak a lot about networking and having conversations with people about it. I realized, oh, I need to write an extra chapter on this. And yeah, so I will do it
exactly.
in addition. Yeah.
That's exactly my experience because I get to talk to people like you. I've spoke a lot about it and you just learn, like today I've learned so much about my own topic and that's just absolutely an amazing experience though.
Yeah. Amy, thank you so much for sharing your experience with us. If people want to connect with you and learn more, what's your website address?
It's just amydaughters.com and that has the books, the speaking, the email address, and even better has my mailing address. And if you want to mail me a letter, I 100% will mail you one back. So
I love that. Amy, thank you so much. And we'll put all
thank
those links in the show notes as well so people can just click through and find you.
okay, well, thank you so much for having me on. It's been great.
It's been great. Thank you. So there you have it. Perhaps the easiest yet most meaningful way you can create a connection with your dream clients and start to build your brand in a very different way. So I'm really curious, when was the last time you wrote a letter to somebody and who's your next letter going to be to? Come and let me know. You can drop me a note on LinkedIn. I'm at Melitta with 2 T's, or drop me an email, or you can write me a letter. If you're on my email list, you will find my postal address at the bottom of every email. And I think this episode has been a really nice reminder that your marketing doesn't have to be loud or overwhelming to be really powerful and create this wonderful impact and connection with your clients, and how you don't need loud, pushy, aggressive tactics to really make a difference. And if you're someone looking for support to go deeper into how you can create your business so it has that meaningful impact and your value is woven into everything that you do, then come and check out the Value Whispering Blueprint. You'll find all the details at valuewhispering.com, and I would welcome the chance to speak to you about that and see if it's a right fit for you and your business right now to help you take your business growth to the next level in a way that feels completely aligned and right for you and your clients. Meantime, I'll be back here on the show next Wednesday, so I look forward to seeing you then. Bye.